A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are currently in the world. My name is Vipin. I'm the Director for Digital Transformation Customer Success at ZENfra. I have about 24 years of experience in this field of data center and migrations. Along with me, I have Skip, who is our Senior Director for Solution Delivery. Hi, Skip. I also have Gautam, Giri, Frederick with us to help us in this webinar session today. So first and foremost, thank you all for joining and taking our time today to attend this session. And then I hope we should be able to help you address some of the questions you may have and help you to learn something about migrations and the strategies around it for a seamless execution of your customer environment. Right. So with that, let me share my screen. Skip, you want to add something while I'm kind of sharing the screen for today?
Yeah, I think what we'd like to position for you today is the seamless nature of data capture and data reporting that's utilized by ZENfra in providing the services that are being presented here. And we'll come to that as part of the presentation as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. Fred, why don't you just open up the first poll for today while I'm just getting the screen on?
Sure.
And please confirm to me if you're able to see my screen.
Vipin, we're seeing slide sorter. You might want to go to the slideshow.
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
We're also seeing presenter notes.
Yep. And Vipin, we have launched the poll.
Thank you. I will request the participants to, take a minute before we start the session for today. Kind of go through these questions and help us to understand where you are today, and we can probably tweak the conversations around that. And also, I would invite all of you, feel free to unmute your mic and ask any questions you may have. We would like to have this more interactive session today than we kind of sharing some of the process in the migration. So we can address your queries you may have, a particular situation you may have with the customer in the journey of migrations. We can try to answer with experience what we have from our customer base. All right. With that, let me start off. So we're going to discuss about the migration strategies and help you with the seamless execution of this, right? So can somebody confirm me you're seeing the full view of the presentation, right?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so just to set the context for today, I found something really interesting. I kind of look into various surveys, what is available, be it Gartner, IDC, and many others, right? And something interesting I want to share with you today, and I'm sure you guys are already aware of it, right? But 64% of the IT professionals in large corporations identify legacy IT infrastructure and outdated technology as their primary barrier to IT transformation, because it's complex, right? Nobody really want to take a risk or create any problems while touching upon, though they are wishing to have transformation, they may not know what's going to break, what's going to be sustained, right? So what could be their continuity plan if they are looking into migration, right? So that's 64%. That's a big number, right? And about 51% reported that they're kind of abandoning or stalling the transformation effort due to unexpected challenges. Do you guys agree? The folks who are on the, if you want to comment on this, you can use the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself, probably what do you think about this survey results, what I brought in on the screen? Do you agree, disagree? if you want to say yes or no in the chat box, we'll understand that do you really have these challenges while you're having a conversation with your customers. As I said, I just want to make it more interactive so that we have a conversation going rather than traditional PowerPoint presentations and sharing some of the information. All right. If there are any, Fred, if you can help me with any questions comes in the chat box, I would be happy to take it up. Yeah.
Yeah, Vipin. So a quick thing I would like to update. So I have allowed them to talk, so they can unmute themselves or they can talk.
Awesome.
Yeah, please.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So let's understand what is data center migration, right? I'm sure you might have come to this forum today, probably having a lot of information about data center migrations, or you may be kind of in the state of mind where, probably working for your own data center environment, or maybe you're helping your customers and want to know what, ZENfra as a team want to share with you, and probably you can incorporate some of the best practices. So let's understand what is data center migration, right? It's kind of moving your current IT assets. That could be your servers or storage or networking devices, in general, perceived as from one location to another. Not really in all the migration cases, though. We hear a lot of the times lift and shift, right, as part of the relocation efforts, right? That's in general, just to get everybody on the same page. But there are not necessary that every other migration would be lift and shift. It could be in place migrations as well, right? So you're kind of doing live migrations within the environment what you have. Depends on the complexity and the criticality of the business problem what you're trying to solve, right? Now, what are those migrations, right? It could be application migrations. You may have hundreds of thousands of applications running in different computing environments or servers or data centers. You could be looking at more transformation around that application, or maybe application modernization, right? Or you may want to get into more containerized applications, or you will be looking at more orchestration in terms of application, right? So, and it could be related about your storage migrations, right? So you may have a tech refresh going on, and probably you want to come out of the legacy platform what may have in the environment, and then look out for more advanced NVMe kind of or maybe flash drive sort of storage migrations. Or it could be you might be looking at maybe a cloud burst where you have a seasonal requirement to have more storage requirements, and then probably you need to put back and forth in a hybrid cloud environment perspective, right? And it could be traditional database migrations, right? So shifting the data from one database platform to another. We see a lot of changes happening when it comes to folks moving from one particular database to another. So it could be database migrations as well. So this is particularly I can talk about from a very high level, 30,000 feet above, from a data center migration perspective. Now, the challenges, right? So as I mentioned, the first slide, many of the people kind of stay away from because they don't want to face the challenges, or they may not even have the right partner or support system to help them to mitigate those challenges and risk to have a seamless data center migration. Or it could be something like you don't know where to start with from a data center migration perspective. You probably need somebody to guide you, navigate through that process. And some of the challenges I list down here, downtime and service interruption could be a big challenge, right? So you really don't want the business to be impacted because you're doing a migration, right? You may have difficulty in getting the change windows, or maybe service downtime for more mission critical applications, what you may have, right? Even during a weekend. The one could be compatibility and dependency issues. You may think of, okay, let me migrate from one physical server to virtual servers, or a virtual server to another virtual servers. But if you have not defined clearly the compatibility metrics, when you do the cutover, it could be very well possible that the application doesn't turn up. And thereby you have a big escalation happening in your environment. All the stakeholders are unhappy about it, what's happening, right? So when you don't provide data availability for them to work on their, especially think of a banking environment, transactions are being stalled. or it could be something around, something like a trading environment. So customers are not able to do the trade on a timely manner, right? So that could be another issue. Data loss during the process of migration, you kind of lost the data, and it's more of credibility issue or goodwill of the customer environment because they don't have the data, and it can lead into many other financial complications as well, or the data getting corrupted. And the capacity and the performance planning. So you may not know, hey, you know what, I'm doing this migration, but I've not really assessed about what could be my future capacity growth. How do I predict my capacity? Thereby, I can have the right servers or storage set up to be ready for it, right? How do I look at from a performance perspective? How do I plan that? Having experience of migrating 30,000 workload, 40,000 workload migrations for a year, some of the projects which I went through, leading the Americas Enterprise division when I was working with VMware, I see that, okay, they start off with the project, say, X amount of dollar, but then, the schedules are not being aligned very well. There could be some managed services provider in between, our OEM migration folks and the end customer. There could be availability of the resources. So it can lead into various aspects of schedule overruns, thereby increasing your cost. And that becomes a big challenge for IT budgeting perspective, right? And network latency, right? So if you have not clearly defined what could be the bandwidth required, you may have a 30 dB database migration is happening, and then there's a network latency, and the source to the target data, copying of the data, it's not happening in a timely manner. You expected that would be running for about 3 days of time, so you can do the cutover during the migration window. And if you don't have the right network latency, you have network latency issues, you may not be able to complete all those tasks, right? So looking at all of these things, can anybody guess how do we solve these? And what is the basic foundation element to tackle these issues? Any comments, any thoughts? Again, please feel free to unmute your mic so that we can have a conversation. What is really kind of drives you to mitigate this? Okay, let me break that for you. It's data, right? You have enormous amount of data sitting in your environment, and what you need to do to mitigate all of these, having a proper insight. So you start with the discovery, right? What is that we are discovering? Of course, our servers, our switches, our firewalls, you name it, all the infrastructure devices sitting in your environment, your CMDB files, your user informations, your subscription details, your maintenance contracts for all these devices, because it matters a lot when you think holistically from a migration perspective. So I want to introduce something from our product called ZENfra. This is more of a data platform. Now, why I'm talking about this platform, because when I joined this organization, ZENfra, and I'm sure Skip can add in more experiences using this platform, because I was leading Dell, Apex division. I was leading VMware data center migrations for, all the Americas enterprise customers as a program leader. I can very well talk about the beauty of this platform, ZENfra, when I joined this company, how it makes the life of a migration consultant or a project manager or a executive leadership in terms of making it really seamless. And I'm talking about ZENfra as a platform which can be used in all of your data sources, what you have in your data center, and then carving out some of the solutions out of the platform, what we have with the ZENfra intelligence, and then bringing it something like a package for a particular use case. Here, I would be introducing something called Success 360, which helps you to do all of that discovery, assessment, and planning. And it doesn't stop there. It gives you application dependency mapping. You can create your bundles. You can create your wave groups. You can create your project management module because you don't need to rely on various other project management tools sitting out there. And somebody from your team as a project manager key in all the information manually into the project management modules, what you may have. Because ZENfra does that, all of that for you, automated. So you have all that what we need to do. There are multiple ways we can inject the data into it. It lives on AWS environment, so it gives you all of the best features when it comes to security, right? Accessibility, availability, scalability, right? All that things are being covered when it sits, and it also add up private AI, right? Because the data of yours sits in that environment in a tenant, which you have complete access and control to. So all the data sits in the data lake. You may have a migration requirement. You kind of, if you see on the green section there, so let me put some of the highlights there. So I'm talking about the product suite. So observability as one of the feature. FinOps, you want to do multi-cloud economics. You want to see intelligence or migration, risk assessment and control systems. So you have so many things sitting out there as a product suite from this data source, what we have collected through AI and ML, pattern matching and other things. And then you may have a particular use case for your customer. Hey, you know what? I need to do a migration, and then I'm going to have more functional approach. After the migration has been done, I need to arrive at a chargeback mechanism for those divisions. So if you recall now, more of the organizations are looking at profit center than the cost center. IT used to be a cost center. Now it's more profit center because everybody has got targets. So you may have an HR team, they would be using X amount of compute devices or storage devices. So we need to find out how much consumption of these things are happening so that we can charge back to them, thereby IT become more profit center than a cost center, right?
I believe we might have a question from Michael Harvey. Michael, can you ask your question? Or if you'd prefer, put it into the chat. Ah, there. Okay, Michael hasn't asked his question, so we can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Shall I continue? We have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Vipin,
thought
you
Michael
can
had a
continue. So I don't see Michael. Michael, we have unmuted you. You can talk, or you can raise a question in the message, or you can raise a question in Q&A.
Okay, you can continue, Vipin. Sorry.
All right, no problem. I'm switching. I think some issue with my audio. I'm kind of switching into my headphone through Bluetooth. So am I audible?
Yeah, you sound fine.
All right, good. So, and then I was talking about the project management section, right? So looking at the best of these things, and you may have a leadership team looking at, hey, you know what? I'm doing this migration, right? I have, say, 5 data centers, and each data center has got a project manager associated with it, dealing with all of these migrations. I may have architects sitting there. They may have specific requirements for listing down the applications, what they have, and then, you know, there could be a stakeholder mapping for all these applications, right? And there could be application owners. So, and then you may have, you know, probably a kind of a third party sitting, and probably you might have subcontracted some of the work to XYZ company for some of the aspects. So how do I get all of these things together? The answer to that is a project management module, right? So when you do this chargeback, when you do this observability, when you do assessment, security assessments, so you can see all of that pre-populated into the project management module, and you can have a role-based access system, thereby each and every user gets it, what they're really looking forward from this product. So you can have more customization about how you want to kind of list down the dashboards, reports, how do you want to send these emails. So I can tell you from experience of 15 years working in this data center, out of my 24 years of experience, this is an amazing tool I have come across with, which helps lot many aspects. To be honest, seamless for me to kind of run through an execution of a migration. So Skip, if you want to add anything around that, I know you have been using this tool for quite some time in various migrations, uh, the biggest Fortune 100 companies and, and various other SIs. So you want to add anything here?
I found that this tool has greatly enhanced the productivity of myself and my team by helping us automate the process of gathering data, analyzing data, and planning for migrations to the tune of 30 to 40% better productivity in doing these things. So I'm very excited to be able to show you guys, what we're doing along those lines.
All right. Thank you, Skip, for sharing your experience. Okay, so that's about the platform. Why I wanted to share this in the first place, because you need to understand, because rest of the slides, what I have is revolves around the data, because you have a powerhouse, which is your data. It's how you utilize it for your migration. Because I can tell you from various migrations, what we have done for BFSI, healthcare, other divisions, the planning takes the maximum amount of time in a migration. Execution is more of a hands-on, right? So you may have a run book, which is sitting there, and you have the hands-on resources sitting and executing those best practices, which has already been outlined from your discovery, assessment, and planning phase. So if you ask me where you really need to put the effort is on the planning phase, because if you look at from an 80-20 principle, so 80% of the risk and execution challenges are being solved if you have really, really good, solid planning, right? And from a time perspective, it's other way around. 80% of your migration journey you will spend in planning, 20% in execution, right? If you have a real good planning in place, execution becomes seamless. But if you flip the other way around, 80% of your risk and problems can be solved if you solve that 20% on the, the phase which you need to spend on executing the strategy, right? So now looking at the key factors, right? So how you or your team or organization kind of looking at various influencers when it comes to taking those migration decisions. One is about cost reduction. You just don't do it a migration for the sake of doing it, right? For fun, right? We don't do that. Definitely there should be definitive outcome. We need to get it after the migration, right? That's the value. So cost reduction could be one. Technological advancements could be another one, because if you see some of the old legacy systems sitting there, even today also mainframe systems are there. So technological advancement would be a crucial aspect, because everybody talks about AI, but if you have a system which is sitting way back, doesn't even support any of these technological advancement, we become laggards, right? So we don't get the best of the solutions available for our customers to take the business advantage. Capacity expansion. Initial days, probably they may have thought through a data center planning with the sufficient amount of rack space and cooling and other things. But then they realized, okay, business is drastically growing. How do I grow my capacity? Because you don't have enough space in your data center. Then you may look at hybrid cloud, or maybe you may even look at public cloud movement, or even you can look at for shared spaces, like I can think of Equinix or Lumen or Rackspace sort of service providers, right? So they kind of help you to host coexistence of the data center, right? Multi-tenant kind of platforms, which you get it. So you look at these kind of options available for you to think of a capacity expansion perspective. Consolidation could be, you may have a data center in the initial days planned in different centers, but then you really want to do a consolidation. And probably you didn't ever think of disaster recovery because of the ransomware attacks and other things. If you have not defined very well on your resiliency, cyber resiliency perspective, that could be another area where influencers for your data center migration. Performance, regulatory compliance, it could be HIPAA or various other country-specific
or European Union defined regulatory compliance where you need to keep some of the data, what they have within those countries, within those boundaries of these geography, right? So that could be another reason for you to think of your data center migrations. And cloud and co-location strategy, which I mentioned about it, because you may want to keep your web servers on the cloud, and then probably you want to keep your data center DBs, database servers probably behind the firewall within your on-premises, and having an L2 VPN connectivity between your web servers and your data center. So those sort of things can influence your decisions on migrations, right? Now, I touched upon the data factor, right? So this is the beauty of it. So if you look at from a migration strategy perspective, the 7Rs, this could be, and if you see from the arrow, which is from the top to bottom, level of effort. So the 7Rs are the various migration strategies. And it's retire some of these servers, what you have. Once you identified, okay, this is not creating much impact, kind of want to retire that since you already moved some of the data into a newer platforms. Or maybe you really don't want to do any migration, but you just want to retain the way it is because of complexity. That could be another way while you're doing a larger migration strategy. Relocate, it could be another, as the word suggests, from one location to another. Rehosting that into a new platform, or you might be doing repurchase. Say, for example, you have some of the devices sitting there from a particular OEM, and then probably you kind of getting into newer capacity modeling or a subscription plan from them. So you might need to repurchase some of the plans what you have with your OEM vendors and then move into that. Re-platform, maybe something from Windows environment to a Linux environment with a specific configurations or vice versa, or maybe a Kubernetes platform as part of your modernization. Refactor and re-platform you can think of in that line. Maybe serverless computing for some of the aspects, right? So, or maybe you are thinking of a microservice architecture of your application, and then you really want to have each of those microservices to be running in different servers, and then you do a consolidation around it. So this could be one of the migration strategy, couple of the migration strategy. So, and on the left side, what you see, the current IT snapshot, what you have in your environment, and then what you do in this entire process is discover and organize the data. So that's the value proposition ZENfra brings in, because you can take those decisions, what you need to retire, what you need to retain, relocate, repurchase, replatform, refactor. It gives you that business value through this application. So you can take really good strategy around what you really need to do from a migration perspective. Now, this is another form which I've, probably makes it a little easier. And all these phases, when you do think of what are the phases it goes through, we can definitely share these slides at the end of the presentation today. You can think of retiring, what are the phases it goes through, retaining, what are the phases. But in a nutshell, a lot of discovery, assessment, planning, validation, and then execution, validation, which are very common, right? Either of these phases, what you go through, right? So it's just a pictorial representation of what you can think through as a cycles or a phases, what you go through in your migration journey, right? I have given a footnote there as a custom off-the-shelf and software as a service model, if you're thinking of that service offerings, right? So in a subscription model. Now, and I mentioned about, so once you have the data, once you have assessment done, planning done through ZENfra Intelligence, you can put all these things into our project management module, right? So on-premises and multi-cloud, everything can be combined together, and then you can have specific sections which talks about how you can use this ZENfra solution to make your migration services faster. Now, you might be wondering, right? So I just want to take a pause here. Do we have another poll, by the way, Fred? Or is it because I really want to switch a little bit gears around if we have any of these participants from a channel perspective or maybe from a system integrator perspective. I want to really tune the conversation there and probably open up some of the breakout rooms for folks to join, because I know If you have a smaller group, then we can have more candid conversations as well. So I have got the moderator lined up for each of those rooms as well. But before that, do you want to run a poll?
Yeah, there will be a final poll. I can release it right now.
Yeah, because then probably we can switch into the breakout rooms and probably address some of the concerns, questions, queries you may have about migration. I have a few more slides which talks about how you kind of establishing your migration strategy. I just glanced through. If you are interested, you can come back from the breakout room, and then I can, kind of walk you through some of these steps as well. Just to give you a glance about what we need to talk through, right? So there is a poll available on your screen. If you can take a minute. All right, so I stopped sharing the screen now. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the breakout rooms, what we have for today. Just give me 1 second. So we have opened up, we kind of just to make the conversation going, right? So I can talk about 10 other slides with you, but then if I'm not addressing a specific situation, what you might be going through, or kind of addressing your customer problems, right? So you can discuss with us, we can help you, support you there. And then probably, we can regroup back again into the main room and then talk about some of the common challenges together. And then I can also give you some of the bonus here by giving you access to, if you're interested, we can have kind of an access to our Success 360 standard solution. So you can play it around and then, and probably use it in your real case situations, or maybe you want to inject some of the logs and then see how it is kind of throwing out, insightful information for you to help your customers. So we can do all that conversation once we regroup. But we have a breakout room for planning and strategy, risk management, if you're interested in, and then technical considerations, and then project management and execution can be another breakout room. So feel free to join the breakout room, as per your choice. Thanks everyone for joining today, and look forward for our future webinars, and we will be posting these webinars on every Tuesday. So please feel free to join us and we'll be happy to address any of the questions you may have. Thank you. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye.